All right.
Three. Hey, everybody, this is Jesse Krieger, and welcome to this interview with dear friend Christine Kloser. She is the goddess pioneer of the transformational author space. And before I go any further, I'm going to give Christine a chance to say hi, and then I'll give her a full introduction.
Fabulous. Well, hello, everyone. And thank you, Jesse, so much for having me here. And I think that that's the first time I have ever been called a goddess pioneer. So thank you.
I know
But it is true.
we're talking about it in the green room, but it is true. And, Christine's somebody that's been working with authors and helping people write transformational books and transform themselves in the process for many years. She's worked with over 75,000 authors. These people have learned from her. Some have gone on to do TEDx talks, built 6- and 7-figure businesses, speaking internationally. So really at the heart of that is what we're going to talk about today, which is sort of her signature process to really envision how to write a great book, transform yourself, and ultimately readers and the world in the process. So I'll let Christine dive more into that. But just know, if you haven't entered the writing contest yet, you've got a chance to win an amazing prize to help get your book done with Christine Kloser, and we'll talk more about that towards the end of this interview. So back to you, Christine.
Yes. Do you want me just to dive in and start talking about this amazing tool I'm going to teach you, which is called the Transformation Quadrant? Do you want to ask me questions, Jesse? You want me just to roll with it?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love for you to roll with it. Maybe if we
Okay.
can set it up just a little bit in terms of giving
Absolutely.
an overview of the quadrant. I think you've got a graphic on deck, and
I
then
sure
let's
do.
just deep dive into each of the 4 steps, and I'll jump in if I
Awesome.
have questions.
Okay, sounds good. Well, what I want to do to kind of lay the backdrop of how this transformation quadrant came to life is back in 2007, after I had published hundreds of authors and anthologies, and for 2 years kept saying no to so many of them who asked me to help them write their own book. I decided in 2007 I would say yes, finally, to those people who wanted me to help them write their own book. And that's when I created my award-winning program, Get Your Book Done, which is one of the prizes in the contest, the $2,000 program, and someone's going to get it. And I can't wait to serve you in that space if that's you. But I created that program, which has iterated and grown, as you can imagine, a lot from 2007 to 2019, as we're speaking here live. It's been through a lot in the 12 years. And one of the key changes I made to that program was adding this transformation quadrant to the course content, and I'm going to teach it to you today. Because when I first created Get Your Book Done back in 2007, I had to put myself through the process first before I could teach it. So I would create my curriculum for the day that I was teaching to the 6 people in the program at the time, and then I would do it for my own book, and deliver it to them all at the same time. So I was writing my own first full book while I was coaching other people to do the same, and creating, version 1 of Get Your Book Done. We're now in version 3.0 of the Get Your Book Done program. But in that iteration of the course, I did not have this thing called the Transformation Quadrant yet. And as a result, I personally ended up writing the wrong book. I wrote a great book called The Freedom Formula: How to Put Soul in Your Business and Money in Your Bank. I had Neil Donald Walsh write the foreword. I sold thousands of copies. I literally built a $500,000 business in a matter of months after that book being released. But it wasn't the right book for me to write at the right time, for the right reasons, and to build the right business. That $500,000 that I generated in the first half of 2009 when the book was released, I actually ended up bankrupt 2 years later because I had built something that wasn't sustainable. If I didn't mind killing myself slowly and feeling like I was selling my own soul, I would have been able to continue that business, but I couldn't. I'm the kind of person, I've got to be in alignment. I've got to feel passionate and excited about what I'm doing on purpose at a deep soul level. And that book for me, I was all about the soul and the business part. And everyone that bought from me that $500,000 business that I grew in 6 months, all they cared about was the money in the bank part. And I'm like, but it's so much richer. And I know now that if I had the quadrant back then, I probably wouldn't have written that book. I did relaunch it just last October. I wrote the 10-year anniversary edition, and it is a phenomenal book. I just got a letter in the mail yesterday out of nowhere from someone who said it basically changed their entire thought of their business. But I knew the pain of writing the wrong book for the wrong reasons, for leaving my own transformation out of the process. And I vowed to myself that if I were ever to really serve authors again in a deep way, that I would do it differently. So in 2011, when I first launched the Transformational Author Experience, it kind of birthed this transformational author movement. I first called it the 4 levels of transformation, which we'll get to in just a moment. But it then, a couple years ago, it actually evolved into the Transformation Quadrant, and the teaching itself just got deeper and richer, and we're seeing amazing results as to what people can do with their transformational books if the very first step they take is doing this specific quadrant. So that's why I'm so passionate about the quadrant. I know I shared a little bit of my, I guess you can call it a sob story. I mean, hell, bankruptcy sucks for anyone who's been through it, part of my language, but it was probably the most difficult time of my life. But out of that emerged, I took everything that didn't work and I figured out how to make it work, not only for me, but for the 80,000, near 80,000 authors that I've trained and the hundreds that I've personally published. So that said, enough backdrop for us to jump into the first quadrant, Jesse?
I'd say so. I mean, I appreciate you sharing that, sort of vulnerable story about writing the wrong book, but doing it well enough where it had success, ultimately sort of collapsed under the weight of itself. And from that emerged the quadrant that you're going to teach on, but also gave you clarity on what you've been doing ever since. So the better part of the last 10 years, and certainly since I've known you, I've always been impressed and admired that you, beyond pretty much anybody else I've seen, is really gifted at helping people tune into the right book that they should be writing for the right reasons and at the right time. So I think that's good. Let's dive in and pull back the curtain for everybody.
Fabulous. Well, as we pull back the curtain, we're going to dive into what I call the S quadrant. But before I do that, I'm just going to show you quickly what the quadrant looks like. You might want to have a pen and paper handy to just jot this down for yourself. But this is what the quadrant looks like. I'm kind of not a hard and fast, cut and dry, black and white, straight lines kind of person. So I work with my designer to make it look a little bit prettier. And also this quadrant, as you see, like the rings of each of the quadrants interlink. They belong together. They're not separate parts. When you're writing your book, if you don't include all of these quadrants, and we're going to dive into the S quadrant first. The S stands for self. If you don't interlink all these quadrants, it's like having a table with 4 chairs, like with 4 legs, where one of them is missing. In some cases, like I've seen people, and hopefully you've written that down because I'm going to turn it off. I'm going to come off the screen and come back to you live face-to-face in just a moment here. So jot that down. But I've seen all too often that people don't even know that when they're writing their book, they need all 4 legs to work together. Like what I did when I wrote the Freedom Formula, I wrote the book and I did business and I did reader. But it crumbled because it couldn't sustain under those 2. I didn't have enough of my own evolution and process in the book. So that's where we're going to start. So if you have your circles down, right down next to that S circle, self. And what you really need to think about and contemplate in this quadrant, which from what I've seen, is missing in almost every course that I've seen on book writing, because I go right into like, okay, book writing, let's write the book. And when my clients work with me, I believe so strongly that the more you put into foundation, the easier it is to write the book. And the more confidence you have knowing that you're writing the right book. So the question to ask yourself in this self quadrant is, what transformation do you want for yourself through the process of writing this book? Because if you consider that question and let that be part of your North Star in terms of moving you forward in the book writing process, you will find that you come out the other end, not only an author, but you come out a version of yourself that you always knew is inside, but hadn't yet been fully integrated, embodied, unleashed in the world, if you will. And there is nothing like that. Like I've had clients who, used my program, wrote their books, grew their list from, 7,000 people to 70,000 people, and their income from 62,000 to nearly 1 million. And they're like, those results were amazing. But the greatest part of writing this book is I now have a better sense and understanding of who I really am in the world, of who I see myself to be in the world. And, she dug into that self quadrant to get those kind of results, great results for her book. But personally, the author that I'm thinking about, her name is Dallas. She was a changed woman, not like different, like a different person, but she was more of herself. And she knew that writing this book, the transformation that she wanted, was really to gain the courage and the confidence to go out there and be big in sharing her message, and to get, the recognition that she felt like she deserved. But she knew inside that writing this book, her personal transformation, was for the courage and confidence to really be the embodiment of that message and, live it everywhere. And she has. She's actually iterated since that book into some other work that she's done and continued the success. But she came out, the book at the end was like the cherry on top to who she knew herself to be as a result of the process. So that's what you want to look at in the self quadrant. And I just have to say, earlier today, as we're recording this, I was talking with one of my private clients, and she admitted to me today, she goes, when we first did my quadrant, this was like 4.5 months ago, she said, when we got to the essence of what the S quadrant was for me, she said, I said it and I agreed with you that like that was what it was. But she said, I didn't believe that kind of transformation could really happen for me. And this morning, when I talked with her at 9:15 for our morning call, she was in tears, literally saying to me, she said, Christine, she goes, because as soon as she got on the phone, I said, you feel different. Something's different about you. She's like, yeah. She's like, all the work we've been doing is sinking in. She's like, I am, my book's not even written. She said, but I already have the transformation as quadrant. And she was in tears because she really didn't think it was possible. So if you've heard the expression, be careful what you wish for, be careful what you wish for here in the self quadrant. Be clear of what you wish for here in the self quadrant, because it has the potential to literally show up and transform who you see yourself to be, like the client I talked this morning, or Dallas, who I shared about earlier. So that's the power of the self quadrant. And too many people leave it out and do what I did and write the wrong book, not the one that you're going to still be jumping up and down to talk about 10 years from now. I don't have a book factory mentality. I have a book quality mentality. And that's what I want for you. And it really starts with that self quadrant. So any questions on that, Jesse, or want me to move on to the next quadrant?
Well, I imagine there's a reason you talk about that quadrant first, because it is foundational to the process of writing a book, let alone building a business and a brand that you can stand behind comfortably and confidently. And I guess if you were to say anything further about, you say, be careful what you wish for here, but also I would probably not caution anybody to dream less than as big as they can see for themselves.
Oh, yeah.
As any words of wisdom as people that are either writing their books now or preparing to write their book or book proposal, just full permission to experience for themselves the change and transformation they want in this process.
Absolutely. And like the client I talked to this morning, be willing to proclaim something for yourself in this quadrant that perhaps is so beyond your comfort zone that you can't even imagine it being possible, right? Like this client that I talked to this morning, it was not in her realm of possibility. And yet just 4.5 months later, she's living it. And I could feel it in her. And when she started crying, I started crying, because it's like, like, this is great. I'm like, and you're going to be an author too, on top of it all. So be willing to ask or proclaim the transformation that you want in this quadrant that is outside of your zone of knowing, that is outside of your comfort zone. Leave room for miracles, because I have seen more miracles to this quadrant than any other tool I've ever taught. So yes, leave room for miracles. Don't think small. Let yourself get uncomfortable, and you'll be surprised at what impossibilities might become possible for you. So yeah, good point, Betsy.
I love it. Thanks for that.
All right, so then let's move on to the R quadrant. And perhaps you can guess that if the first quadrant's about the self, the R quadrant is about your reader. And now when you're writing your book and you're thinking about your readers, like you want to share all the information you can with them to help them get whatever the result is, right? There's some promise that you're making in your book. If you're writing nonfiction, at least certainly there's a promise that you're making. And the goal of that book is delivering that promise to the reader. But in this quadrant, what I ask you to do is really take it one step further. And that is to really contemplate deeply what transformation, like if you just got clear on the transformation you want for yourself, what is the true transformation that you want for your reader? And sometimes it helps in this quadrant. When I work with people one-on-one and doing a transformation quadrant consultation, I will walk them through a little meditative process. I'm not going to go through the whole thing here, but the essence is that you imagine your ideal reader sitting in a chair, like their favorite place to read, and they've got your book in their hands, and they're on the last page, and they read the last paragraph, the last sentence, and they've closed that book, and they're taking that moment of pause. And in that moment of pause, they're thanking you for the transformation, for what you gave, the gift you gave them as they read your book. And when you can really spend some time tuning into that ideal reader, turning into the energy, tuning into how you want them to feel at the end of that book and what's different for them as a result of reading it, the answer to that, what do you want them to thank you for? That is the kind of transformation that you're looking to connect with here in the reader quadrant. And I was just doing a transformation quadrant consultation actually yesterday with one of my private clients that are just getting started with. And, she surprised herself, and she actually was teary-eyed when she really nailed what it is. But she wanted her readers to have such a deep sense of being okay with who they are, right where they are, and with everyone else in their life around them. Just this sense of peace that they're okay and everyone else is okay. And she was so moved by that clarity that she was in tears. She's like, oh. And then all like dominoes, she could begin to see how the book would, what she thought she would write would shift as a result of having that clarity in the reader quadrant. Because when you know that that's the result you want, that reader transformation is what you're looking for, then as you're writing, you can write for that end. You can write for that transformation. You can make sure that you're really guiding people to that point where they're sitting in that chair. And maybe they send that email or write that card. Like I just got a card, actually, I just got a card with a client's book in the mail yesterday. So I have it right on my desk. I think that was upside down, but he was, thanking me he did get your book done and he wrote his book. And and he thanked me for making it easy and, simple for him to just follow the steps and produce that book, even though he and I never actually talked personally. He just went through the course, never got on a group coaching call, and like, boom, the book is in the mail. Like, I know the transformation I want my clients to have in the Get Your Book Done program, and a book shows up in the mail with a thank you letter saying almost exactly what I had hoped that my clients in Get Your Book Done would say. And that's what I want you to have with your book, the kind of clarity. You know what you want. That, like me, maybe they're not sending you a book in the mail to say thank you, but maybe they're sending you an email, or maybe they're sending you a Facebook message, or maybe they're snail mailing you a letter that thanks you for giving them the exact transformation that you had always hoped to give them once you get that clear in that reader quadrant. So
I love that. And that's sort of really the ultimate testament to get a copy of somebody's book in the mail that took what you shared and the intention that you put into sharing and have that reflected back to you, not only by somebody sending you a book that they wrote, but thank you cards, emails. I want you to tune into this as you're watching, because that's what's on the other side of completing the book, getting it out and getting it into readers' hands, is that feedback loop of people responding and saying how much your book made an impact on their lives. And if you're writing fiction, maybe they fell in love with the characters or the storyline. And the same thought process applies as to nonfiction or personal development. I can see how this quadrant really works to envision the kind of book that you want to write, for what reasons and for what reader. So, and I know we're only halfway through it.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And I just have to say, earlier, this is a busy day. I've been on call since 8:30 this morning. It's now like 4:30 my time as we're talking. So it's been a full day of calls. But I was on a group coaching call today and had a client in the Get Your Book Done program who is writing transformational fiction. And, you know, I always tell my people, I'm like, it's written for nonfiction, but my fiction writers, you know, say that it works for them too. And she was just raving about how, you know, working through this quadrant gave her so much clarity in her fiction book. She's like, this is, you know, she was just singing praise. She was also in tears on a call today too.
Like a lot of calls and a lot of crying today.
A lot of calls and a lot of tears, a lot of breakthroughs, a lot of insights, a lot of ahas, a lot of people doing the thing that they really weren't ever sure that they could do in a way that felt right for them. So yeah, there have been a lot of tears and a lot of calls.
Tears of joy. Tears of joy.
Yes, absolutely. I love it. And I'm such an empath, like I just cry right along with them. But anyway, let's move on then to the B quadrant, which is so super important. And I know that this has a lot to do with what you guys are teaching through the contest and some of the trainings. The B is about business. Okay. So the key thing, and hold on, I just lost my earbud monitor. Okay, hopefully it'll stay so I can hear you, Jesse, when we're talking. All right, done. So with the B, right down next to that, the business quadrant. And too often people either go too far into this quadrant and they write a book solely for what it's going to do for their business and how it's going to make them profit and make them a millionaire overnight, whatever it is. And other people go the other end and they like write the book sort of untethered or disconnected from the real practical, tangible, financial, impactful results they want to see in the business. So as the question in the self and the reader quadrant, you know, relate, it's the same question here. And that is that you really need to contemplate in this business quadrant, what transformation do you want for your business as a result of writing your book? And the key thing to remember here in this quadrant, the same consultation I was doing yesterday, she was kind of, she's very spiritually oriented, deeply connected, lives more in lives more in air than earth. And all of her business quadrant transformations were like kind of etheric. Like, oh, I want to have a lot of readers for my book. And, you know, all these other things. And we worked for a little while to really help her get tangible, you know, down into like, if there was one result in your business that your book could bring for you, what would it be? And some of the examples that I gave her, which I'll give you here too, is like I have some clients, like my client Beth Kennedy. She wrote a book called Career Recharge. And she knew that in that business quadrant, she wanted that book to help her get more speaking engagements, and specifically international speaking engagements. Because she knew if she could get in front of a stage and talk to her audience, she's a business consultant, a resiliency consultant really for burnt out executives and doctors and people like that. But she knew if I have this book, I could get in front of more stages. And if I'm in front of more stages, that's going to mean more clients, more work, more profit for my business, and more service in those communities. She was so crystal clear. In fact, actually, it's an interesting story. Beth, unfortunately, could not join me on my writing retreat that I held last year to Tulum, Mexico, because even before her book was done, she was so clear on the results. While I was hosting a retreat in Mexico with many of her colleagues in my mastermind, she was actually in Spain giving a talk on her first international stage in Madrid, or Madrid or Barcelona, one or the other. But she was so clear that what she wanted from this book is international speaking gigs. Like she wanted across the states, but even beyond. And she saw that manifest just in the process of writing, because she would put in her subject lines and in her bio, forthcoming author of Career Recharge. And someone caught wind of that. Ooh, she's an author, and bam, there she was. And then she ended up speaking at a conference in Canada not too long ago and was raving like her hero in her industry was the keynote speaker, and she was like right next to him in the lineup.
Wow.
Yeah, I was so happy. And she's like been winning awards and she's been all over the media. Like she's been doing amazing things with this book. But she had the clarity in that business quadrant so she could design the book not only for her own transformation and the reader's transformation, but for that exact transformation that she was looking for in her business. So when you have that kind of clarity with the transformation that you want for your business, like this is what I'm telling you, the impossible, like she never imagined she'd get booked before the book was actually published, um, became possible, like beyond what she even
Well,
dreamed.
yeah, exactly. If she's speaking right alongside her mentor,
Yeah.
then that's even the icing on the cake. So
Yes.
it's like each section in the quadrant strikes me as a lens to look at the book writing and the authorship process through. Of course, the first one being the self, and then what experience you want for your reader, and then what outcome you want or what shift you want in your business is helpful in thinking about what are the other things that a book really provides business opportunity wise. And you've spoken about some of them: speaking, of course, there's masterminds, live events, online training courses, retreats. Really, the possibilities are endless.
Well,
Uh,
I mean, another example, like think of what T. Harv Eker did with Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. And it's like, it's not showing that I'm on video. So if you're hearing Jesse and my voice, like I'm here, but as the camera maybe didn't switch over. But anyway, with Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, like he was the first one that I knew of that used a book to get a very specific result of getting people into his live free event. I actually was at his very first event that he did in the United States in Seattle back in 2002 when there were,
no way, I didn't know that.
yeah, there were like 150 of us in the room. That was it. Maybe 200 at max, but it was closer to, I think, between 100 and 150. His first US-based Secrets of the Millionaire Mind intensive. And, since then the book blew up. I actually have a case study in that book, believe it or not. But he then went on to have thousands of people in the room. But he knew the purpose of this book is to get butts and seats to my live event. And he designed it as such, and it worked. I have another client, for example, I'll just be honest with you, he hardly sold any books because he didn't want to sell books. He wanted to give books away to anyone who inquired to his retirement strategist, like financial consulting company. He just wanted to send them books in his welcome kit because that explained his philosophy, and then gave them invitation to contact him for free consultation if they align with his philosophy and wanted to talk about him possibly managing their retirement money. Well, like I said, maybe he probably sold less than 100 books, I'm sure. But within 6 months of the book coming out, he had brought in an extra $150,000 a year of business from clients, from prospects who got the book in the welcome kit and picked up the phone, followed that page at the end of the book that had the call to action, and transferred their money over to him. And so there are so many formulas that, like, this is how you do it and this is how you have to do it and this is the only way to do it if you don't want to fail and be miserable, whatever, with your book. And my philosophy is that's just not true. Like, the only way to do your book is the way that works for you. So don't go putting things in this business quadrant that you think should be there because that's what someone told you. You have the power and the capacity within you to create your business to be what it is that you desire. Like, truly desire. Like, I desire, as Jesse and I, like, I was on vacation last week. I'm going to girls' weekend in New York. I'll be at the spa tomorrow night. I have full days that I work, but I know I need a lot of time off. I don't want to build a multi-million-dollar business. I don't care if I ever hit 7 figures again, to be honest with you. I want my life. I want quality. I want a boutique high-end experience for my clients. And, like, I don't need more than enough. Like, I know what I need for me to be happy and for me to be in a great space to do really good work for my clients and support my stellar team. So I'm designed in my business to be what I want it to be, which is a boutique operation. That might not be right for you. You might want the multi-millions and the couple thousand people in your events. So in this business quadrant, just make sure that when you answer that question, what transformation do I want for my business? It's true and authentic for you, and not because of external messaging that you've been told that it has to be 6 figures or 7 figures, go big or go home. That's true for some. And if that's true for you, awesome, like, go for it. I cheer you on. But if that's not it, Some authors just, they want a $50,000, $60,000 a year business, and that's all they're looking for. They want to work with a few high-end clients, and they want their book to help bring those high-end clients to them. And I cheer you on just as much as the person who wants to go for multi-millions. So be mindful, because it is sometimes difficult to discern what is truly your desire versus what you think you should want based on what you're seeing and hearing out in the world. So that B quadrant, this was my big mistake. Like, I built a business that wasn't the right business for me, which is why I'm kind of driving home. Make this quadrant about you. And maybe you take off for a day, and maybe you shut out the world, or go sit in the forest, or stare at the stars, or wherever you feel connected to you the most, and allow that to guide you to make sure that you don't make that mistake that I did. And you build your business your way, and then design your book to help build that business how you want it.
I love it. And I breathed a sigh of relief when you said that. There's no right answer. I mean, you don't, and the beautiful thing that strikes me is that a book serves all purposes. If you want a smaller boutique, high-end experience with a small number of clients type of business, great. Should definitely write a book and use that to attract those clients. If you want a seven-figure business, speaking internationally, really build a name and a reputation for yourself around your work, great. Should definitely write a book and have that be the focus for the outcome. In both cases, you can serve the business end that you want, but I would second strongly what Christine said, that there's no predetermined way or no prescription here in terms of what you have to do or what you should do, but only what you really feel called to do and that you'd be excited to do with the people that you'd be excited to work with. So for that, nothing beats a book.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's so true. And when you do that right, like, you never work a day in your life. Like, I've been on the phone since 8:30 this morning. It's a long day of group calls and private calls and running virtual writing retreats and all sorts of stuff. But I didn't work today. I had a blast. I got to laugh and cry and celebrate and cheer on amazing clients, up to great things in the world. And you don't have to work if you really design the business in this quadrant to be what it is that you want, that's going to serve you and serve your life, right? We're not just here to work. We're here to live. We're here to love. We're here to enjoy. We're here to, experience all that life has to offer. And that can happen if you're, designing a business that really isn't right for you. So I think we've said enough about that quadrant. Jesse, what do you think?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
we're good. I think we're good on that front.
So we'll wrap it up here then with the World Quadrant, which is what the W stands for. That's your fourth quadrant. And the question to ask yourself with this quadrant, as the others, is what is the transformation that you would love to see in the world as a result of your book being written? And if you can get clear on that, and some people are like, well, the world, how am I ever going to impact the world? Just, think of that pebble in the pond and the ripples that expand, right? Because if you impact and transform your immediate world and bring, like the client who got the clarity yesterday, when we got to the World Quadrant, like she could see a world at more peace, maybe not at complete peace, but she could see a world at more peace because in the Reader Quadrant, she could see individuals in more peace with themselves as a result of reading her book. And that extrapolates out. And, the ripple effect is like, wow, we could certainly use a little bit more peace in the world. So if you could drop a pebble in a pond and create ripples of change in the world, what is it? I think of my client, Colleen O'Grady. She wrote an amazing book called Dial Down the Drama. She ended up getting a sweet traditional publishing deal. She's one of my TEDx speakers. Like, she's done an amazing job with her book. Again, Dial Down the Drama is the name of it for mothers of teenage daughters. I highly recommend it. I read it myself and it's phenomenal. But she knew that in the World Quadrant, her commitment was to really healing the divide that can happen in the mother-daughter relationship in those teen years. And as a result, bringing more peace to both the mother, the daughter, the entire family, and having that sense of connection ripple out into the world. Because if a mother and daughter can maintain some level of connection during those difficult teen years, that brings more connection to the world if they can do that. And she knew this as she wrote her book, and she's done it. She was talking about it on TEDx. But this world transformation is like your little slice. Like sometimes I think of us all as like little teeth on all those mechanisms inside of like a TikTok watch, right? Every mechanism, every tooth of every living being on the planet has a purpose, has something for them to fulfill, that if it's not fulfilled, the whole thing, the whole mechanism just doesn't tick right. So this is where you get to really dream about how is it that you want your tooth on that wheel to kind of tick and help the world tick in a more aligned, more powerful way. So that's what you're looking at in this world quadrant. What is a transformation that you'd like to see your book have in the world? And
and it strikes me as that's related to the outcome you want for the reader, just multiplied by more people, and that becoming more of a way of life or a shift that's taking place.
Absolutely. I'm going to show the quadrant diagram just one
Yeah.
more time here, which is why they're linked, right? Because you can see, well, if you're not really clear on the transformation you want for yourself and not really sure in self, you could potentially create the wrong business because you're not aligned with yourself in that S quadrant. You're not sure what you really want. That's why we had to change them from the square lines to these interlocking circles, because it really is a web. But I promise you this, that if you do this quadrant, and I actually have a resource I want to share with you so you can deep dive into it more. I wrote a whole book on the quadrant. I have a workbook that you can do to help you develop your own quadrant. But if you really do that work, I am telling you that it will help lay a foundation to help ensure, we talked about at the very beginning, Jesse, writing the right book for the right reasons, for the right audience, to build the right business, so that 10, 15 years down the road, you can imagine yourself still being excited about doing this. That journey of successful transformational authorship begins with this quadrant. So I don't know I know there's a link on the page. I can tell you all where to go and get that resource as well. If you resonate with the quadrant, the book and the workbook will just help take it a little bit further for you. And that's at my name, Christine Kloser, Christine, Kloser, KLOS like Sam, ER.com/TQ, T for transformation, Q for quadrant, TQ book. So ChristineKloser.com/TQ book. There's also a link on this page where you can go get that resource and just spend some time digging a little bit deeper. Especially those of you who have made the wise decision to step up and join the contest at whatever level you've chosen. First of all, I can't wait to work with one of you in my Get Your Book Done group coaching program. But I encourage you, before you hit send on that proposal submission, that you go through the quadrant book, you go through the workbook, you create your quadrant, and you make sure that the proposal you submit is kind of built on that solid foundation. And I have a feeling if you do that, that your proposal will be one of the ones that rises to the top in that contest. So,
Well, I can tell you, I share that sentiment. And if people follow your advice and put the transformational quadrant into practice as they write their book proposal, I think it'll stand out to myself and our team within the first, few pages, within the first sentence. I think that's the result of everything you've talked about here being filtered into the actual writing process. So it comes across much more clear and congruent, and you'll feel that too going through it.
yes. And what you put into your book, energetically on the other side, anyone reading it feels as well. So whether it's, Jesse and, the editorial team that'll be reviewing those proposals, or it's your reader, what you put in, they might it might not be the exact words, but there's an energy that they're going to receive when they read it. And like I said, I promise you, you do this quadrant, you let it imbue, you let it become a part of what you submit in the proposal. And that editing panel, the people who read will feel that depth, will feel that alignment, will feel that power and passion within you, that will kind of put, a little energetic neon light around your proposal in the stack that I'm sure they're going to be receiving. So so grab the resource, go to work, have fun with it. And what else, Jesse? What else do we have?
No, thank you so much, Christine. I know you've been been playing, I wouldn't say working because you didn't say working, playing with authors all day, supporting authors. This is very much what you do and have done in such a great level of depth and detail for better part of a decade. So if it's not already clear to everybody watching this, Christine absolutely knows what she's talking about. And you'll see below this video or wherever you're watching it, a link to get the Transformational Quadrant. She's put together a great resource in a book, which is available to you for free. And definitely encourage you to take everything that Christine's been talking about here, what we've been looking at, and filter this into your book proposal, also to your book itself. I imagine, Christine, we're probably going to get a bunch of submissions that say, I followed the transformation quadrant in first line, put you to the front of the pack. But
well, that would be such a great honor and joy for me to know that this time that you and I spent today, Jesse, really landed in the hearts and souls and heads and hands of those writers. So thank you so much for the opportunity, and happy writing, everyone. I'm excited for you, and I can't wait to work with one of you.
Yes, happy writing, everybody. Thank you so much, Christine, both for your time and insight you shared today, and for contributing this great resource, and for contributing the Get Your Book Done as a prize. So for everybody that is not already entered the writing contest, let this be the tipping point that gets you to go there, throw your hat in the ring, and put some words on the page to help make that transformation both in your life, your readers, your business, and in the world, and win one of the amazing prizes that we've got, including working with Christine to get your book done. And so with that, I want to just thank you once more, Christine, and let's leave it to everybody to take your words and put it into writing.
Awesome. Thank you. It's been my pleasure. Bye, everyone. Thanks again, Jesse.
See you all soon.